Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Calvin Weeder Species. We are in the middle. We're actually not in the middle. We're in the beginning of June, June 4th, and I'm with Rick Della Ratta, and I'm going to actually talk a little bit about Rick before I even introduce him because I'm so thrilled you're here and honored you're here. And I've done some bullet points so people know right off the top. Rick Della Ratta is now considered by many to be one of the finest singer pianists performing today, and only one of a handful of jazz artists who can make a successful musical presentation to a large audience without having to abandon the true art form of jazz. I mean, that's amazing. And then this also, it just as I'm doing my research, Rick, by bringing Israeli, Palestinian, and American jazz musicians together, Rick Della Ratta and Jazz for Peace, which he founded, have used the transcendent quality of music to promote a message of peace and unity. I want to congratulate Rick and Jazz for Peace on everything they have accomplished to this point and all they good they are sure to bring about as they continue this concert series. This was said by United States President Barack Obama. I mean, wow. Wow. Uh, in March 2007, jazz pianist, vocalist, composer Rick Della Ratta was included by the Foundation Center in their list of musician philanthropists, along with Bono, Elton John, Peter Gabriel, and Sting. Wow. The official title of this really special interview. I mean, to me, it's a wow. You're the founder of Jazz for Peace. We're going to talk a lot about that, and that's what we're going to talk about. Jazz pianist, composer. You did Permutata. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that because you filmed that. You did that in the Beatles. Abbey Road Studios. Wow. Vocalist, philanthropist, entrepreneur. We're coming live from New York. So that's and I had a chance to really listen to some of your stuff. I mentioned I stopped and I watched. I didn't stop. I watched "Stop and Smell the Roses," which you performed in Nigeria. Wow! So there's so much to you, but the Jazz for Peace is so important because it's life. It's our life and our future and the planet's future, the things you are doing. So, this wasn't a typical monologue for me, and it certainly wasn't a Johnny Carson type monologue. Um, but it was a monologue. And Rick, let's start with you want to do a little background, and then we're going to jump in to some heavy questions. And at the end of this, there's a picture of a piano there because you're going to be so gracious as to play a little piece for us. So, and that's Peace. See that?
Yeah, I like
Oh,
that.
yeah, I like
Um,
it too.
and
Take it away, Rick.
okay, you know, I love the wow moments. I love your introduction, and I hope other podcasters will check out this podcast and see that Calvin has done some due diligence and dug some stuff up. And that's amazing for me because I'm semi-gaslighted like all of you listeners. I mean, I forget these wow moments myself because they're not utilized as much as they should be, in my opinion, to create more good. Because what it's all about for me is waking up in the morning and like I have to have a wow day to maybe do something to address the world's problems that we're sitting on right here at this present moment. So I think I would love a world where we all woke up and we all said, "Hey, let's make today a wow." I mean, those things that Calvin mentioned are all wows. I'm as impressed as Calvin is to hear them, but nevertheless, they were a day in the life. I played that song by the Beatles on a podcast recently, but it was a day in the life. I'm very thankful for it. Hey, if you stick around long enough, you'll have some wow things. Calvin has them himself. But if I get him on my pass, you'll hear his wows. But my point is, but my ultimate point is to create a situation where we all are thinking in a higher conscious, at a higher level of human consciousness to say, hey, today is a potential wow. Let's make today a wow, and then see what we have. See if that can change tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. We're going to jump into question. And usually these questions are in my head, but these are sophisticated questions, and I want to make sure I get it right. So, what role do you think the current imbalance of 0% funding for world peace and 100% funding for war, which is true, is having on our societies with regards to lowering the overall state of human consciousness? And what would be your plan to reverse that? And before you answer, I have a great picture of myself and a dear friend of mine. We're in Texas, and we're standing on an oil rig, and all the machinery there is Halliburton. So when we realized that in war, Halliburton makes things for war, we extended him and I. He's black, I'm white, so there was great contrast and beauty, and we extended our middle fingers, and it's a great picture, and I have it. I have to send it to you in my archives. So, answer the question.
Well, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. You know, sometimes we're conditioned to wake up and think that everything's not normal. We look around and we think, okay, this is what normalcy is. But, I mean, look at through time. Everyone woke up. People woke up in the days when there was nothing but cavemen, and then that was normal to them. People woke up in World War II in a foxhole. That was normal to them. Well, we have to realize it's normal because of certain imbalances in the world. I mean, the reason your foxhole looks normal to you is because there's a war going on where, people are annihilating each other. All of this is related to things that are being done by our species at a lower consciousness, a lower level of human consciousness. I actually had a human conscious expert on my podcast, the Jazz for Peace podcast, where the final solution is love. And I just said, look, we're live. You tell me what these levels of consciousness are. I'll go up the scale. And then I'm just going to play something for you. And you tell me what that is. You rate it. Well, the lowest level of human consciousness is a 20. And you can watch that podcast and see all the different ones. Let me tell you something. All these things related to war, all these things related to missiles, all these are trillions of dollars using all of our taxpayers' money. Instead of using it for us, we're using it to build bombs and dominate people mercilessly and not work things out in a humanitarian fashion. And all these kinds of things that we're doing are at a low level of human consciousness, period. They are all coming from a way, way below 200, which she said positive levels of human consciousness come above 200. These are way below 200. And so we have to raise our level of human consciousness. Now, having war at 100% and peace at 0, that's a disaster, because when I performed for her live, she gave it a 540 rating. And then she has peace at 600. World peace is 600. And these things we're talking about, where we're getting war at 100, where we're funding, all of our funding dollars are going towards human consciousness activities that are below 100. They're in the 20s and 40s and 60s. They're way in the dark ages compared to just the improvisation that I played for her. So we are doing something that's it's really backwards. I mean, I would call it an oxymoron without any oxy, Calvin. That's what I would call it. So we have to change it. Now, how? That's the question. Everyone wants to know, well, how? How are you going to, how? I'm going to tell you how, because Jazz for Peace has been on a 24-year journey. Next year is the 25th anniversary of the concert at the United Nations that Barack Obama was talking about in Larry's quote. Next year's the 25th anniversary, and astrologists have been calling me, and psychic mediums have been calling me and saying, this is a pull. There's an energy pull to that moment going on in the world, and the world is don't worry, the world is going to speed up. It's going to get faster and faster. People are going to like the energy to that 25th anniversary. So if those people are right, that's some good news for us to look forward to. But how about actual solutions? Well, we have them. One thing we can do is, you have imbalances created because you're just providing one thing and not the other. Okay. So if you're just providing funding for war and you have it at 100% and you're funding peace at 0%, there's a huge imbalance. Okay. World peace needs to be funded at 1%, 2%, 3% on the way to 100% funding for world peace. Now that needs to be done. There are many ways to do it. There are just one of them that I'll tell you right now is something called a trickle up economy for philanthropic purposes, specifically for philanthropy. This can be done. We have the blockchain. The blockchain can create these ledgers, and you can have certain rules that you have to achieve in order to, in order to have things released, etc. We have cryptocurrencies like the Jazz for Peace one that's called Trickle, because we want to create a trickle up economy with it, and only for philanthropic purposes. Now, this is one where what we have now, and I'm just telling you, this is just one, but what we have now is you have a trickle down economy. Okay, so I don't know who invented this crazy idea, but it's part of our society, and everybody knows the word trickle down. I'm sure Calvin knows it. The money somehow comes in, floats into Wall Street or whatever, and trickles down, and maybe you're supposed to get it. Well, who gets it last? The people that are trying to do good in the world are getting it last. They have to spend all year, if they're legitimate, and a lot of them are captured entities because they realize, screw this legitimacy, I'll just go up to Halliburton and tell them to give me money, and then I won't be able to stand up against them because my nonprofit is supposed to keep them in line. So I'll take the money from them, then I have to fundraise all year, but then I'm a captured entity. So you're a zero at that point. So my point is, you're a legitimate nonprofit. Rather than fundraising for 362 days and then trying to save the world for the 3 days you have left over, this is what you can do. Jazz for Peace, for example, with a philanthropic cryptocurrency, the funding can be released to you. You get the funds first instead of last. So you get the funds first. Now this is just for philanthropy. You don't have to shut down any other part of our world. Everybody else can stay what they're doing. If you're happy with that trickle down, enjoy it, do it. This is just for the philanthropic purpose. But now when these philanthropic organizations prove that they deserve those funds by spending that fund into achieving their goal, cleaning up a river, whatever it is, the funds trickle up. They got it last, so they get it first. Now, when they spend it into the economy, it trickles up. And guess what it does? It creates balance. It creates equilibrium. And rather than talk all day about that, I just want to tell you, we have possibly dozens of extraordinary ideas. And it's not because I'm super high IQ. It's because I was telling Calvin offline, I've had a 24-year journey that's taken me around the world, Africa 9 times alone, 850 of the world's most outstanding causes. So I've seen this from my own eyes, and I have the proof that this is what is going to work.
Wow. By the way, Jazz for Peace was born right after 9/11, correct?
On 9/11, on the morning.
Wow. Wow. That's when it was born.
Yeah, I was watching the events from down here. You're in New York too, right, Calvin?
Jersey.
So you got a lot of smoke that day because
we did. We did.
All the smoke was blowing your way, and it was confusing to me because the smoke wasn't coming towards me. I was on the Lower East Side, but I was on a rooftop on the 5th floor, and I was watching it. And words were swirling around, and I started writing the words down to purge them out of me so other thoughts could enter my mind. And when I was done with that day, all I had left was a bunch of words, which I called Jazz for Peace.
Wow. Wow. Powerful stuff. Wow. For many years, billionaires have advised that if you follow your passion, you might end up homeless. And we're going to talk about, and the best way for success in life is to find something that is profitable and become passionate about that. And in the research that I did about you, there was a little link for me to check the billionaire, and one of the great light bulbs of my life went off last night when I started to watch stuff about Larry Namer, who I never heard about. And he's proud, and he said it in the video. He's proud that nobody knows who the hell he is. He's like invisible, and yet he's a multi-billionaire. He's the E Network, wow. And he began in New York fixing cable wires under the streets of New York City. Wow. So, and thank you, Rick, for even illuminating me to watch that. And it's like I want to slap myself in the face. I never heard about the guy, and he's proud about that nobody knows who he is. All right, take it away.
Well, Calvin, you're really opening up a can of worms with that amazing question because it's actually someone from the Rockefeller family who told me about Larry Namer.
Oh, wow.
And see, this is what I mean by wow. I never know what's going to happen here at Jazz for Peace from day to day. I could be hearing from a great podcaster like Calvin Schwartz, or I could be hearing one day I just get a message, Rick, call me, and I'm like, who is this guy that wants me to call me? And I see the last name Rockefeller, and I'm like, okay, phone number, I'll call the guy. So I call him, and he's like, I've been watching you. I love your idea for peace is by far the best in the Middle East. I've been studying you, blah, 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 which is extraordinary to know that somebody is looking that deeply into it. And he's the one who wanted me to review this guy, Larry, who nobody knows about except people like him. He knows about it. So he shows me that guy. And when I saw that, I realized, okay, this is exactly what the changeover that I am proposing based on my evidence. And it's very hardcore evidence, like I told you in the previous question, 24 years of watching all of this. And what Calvin has told you folks is that Larry Namer and all the billionaires. I mean, if you can figure out who the billionaires are and you ask them, they'll all say, this is what I did. I didn't follow my passion and end up homeless. I followed something profitable and became passionate about it. Well, guess what? That's a beautiful thing. It's led us to where we are today. But now it's time to take that baton and run the rest of the way around the circle. And that means, okay, a reverse paradigm, because you've got a handful of millionaires, a few hundred, maybe billionaires. This guy's a billionaire. So a few hundred of these billionaires, maybe there's a few hundred. How are they going to solve all our world's problems? They're over and undated. And not only that, they're not passionate. See, they would have to be passionate about the problem in order to solve it. So every now and then you'll see a billionaire addressing a problem because he's passionate about it. But there's thousands of huge problems. We are swarmed with thousands of problems. Who's going to solve them? I'm going to tell you who. All 8.6 billion of us. And how are we going to do it? By reversing the paradigm. And how are we going to be able to reverse the paradigm? With modern technology. We're going to use it in the right way. Now, this is an option. You go the wrong way and you can blow up everything. But you want to go the right way. You take the technology we have, the computers, this and that, AI, all of it, and you use it now so that the Larry Namer of tomorrow, he goes after what he's passionate about and doesn't end up homeless. Okay, now we're at a crossroads. And why are we at a crossroads? Because a news article just came out that says I am the most underpaid human being on planet Earth in relation to achievement. And it shows a link that you can click on. One link is jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about. If you went to that link, that's what they're using for achievement. Okay, jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about. Those are the achievements the article uses. And then someone else had written some celebrity wiki about my net worth that was over exaggerated, but they used that. Fine. So using those two metrics, they said I'm the most underpaid person in the world. Well, I'm crossing the Rubicon from Larry Namer. Instead of me starving to death and ending up homeless, I'm alive. I'm still here to be with you. I'm here to talk with you. And I want to make things better. I want there to be 1 million of me. I want 8.4 billion of me. That's what I want right now. 8.4 billion. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use all of these things to allow a person, the Larry Namer of tomorrow, to say, this is what I'm really passionate about. This would be great for mankind. This would be great for society. And I'm truly passionate about it. Guess what? You're not going to end up homeless because we're going to utilize technology and everything under our wing. The Jazz for Peace Foundation and other foundations are going to help you. And we're going to help you achieve those goals because you don't have to do a job that you might not like or might not be spiritually connected to. So this is a huge shift, and this is a supersonic way forward. If we can get together, if we can just all come together and say, hey, let's give common sense a chance.
And we need for a myriad of reasons, a plethora of reasons, we need to come together sooner than later.
I don't think we have a choice in the matter.
Well,
Calvin's right. I don't think there's a choice. Not like, oh, we're at a crossroads here. We've got to get our act together.
truly, truly, truly. I think before we went on air, I think one of the things that might really help us if a couple dozen flying saucers were heading down here, like the movie Water Worlds, and all of a sudden we every one of us, the 8.5 billion of us, every one of us become brothers and sisters, and we got to fight them. And maybe they will come here, and maybe they will test us, and maybe they will do that, and maybe that will. I mean, it's science fiction, but maybe not. Anyway,
Well, there's an interview of me in Africa in 2009, and they brought me down there to save the Masai Mara. And I got people behind it. I got the prime minister behind it because he was passionate about it, and I knew he was. So I got him on board
wow,
with this idea to save that region. It's a Mara River. There's indigenous
wow,
people, and it's the great migration of animals. And people came to talk to me. The guy from 60 Minutes who had previously been interviewed by them, he showed up and he wanted to, and there were cameras, and we talked about there will be a time when we will have to unite as a species. So let's prepare now. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And if that day shows up that Calvin is talking about in whatever form it does, it could be a climate issue, it could be any issue where we have to unite as a species, and we are not adept at doing that, we're going to be unlucky. Okay. But if we unite as a species now and get it together, that's when preparation will meet opportunity and we can get a little good luck.
start now, start now.
Right now.
Yep. One quick off-topic question I like to ask it. I think it's an appropriate time. Uh, Here goes. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Somebody I'd like to spend a day with. Can it be anyone in time, or does it have to be someone?
Anyone in time. It's your ticket.
There's a lot, but I mean,
A few. You can throw a few up there, sure.
Leonardo da Vinci wouldn't be a bad guy to pick his brain. Um, Plato and Aristotle, I hate to say it, 2,000 years ago, these guys lived, but the knowledge they had that could help us out today is absolutely insane. You have Plato, who basically stated the definition of money, which is a median of exchange for the purpose of a virtuous existence. Okay, that's Plato. That's so many thousands of years ago. That's so far ahead of what we're doing out here every day. So far ahead. And my philanthropic currency is fashioned after that statement by Plato. Okay, it is a medium of exchange for the purpose of a virtuous existence. Aristotle, on the other hand, mastered all the different types of ruling classes. There was like maybe 6 types, or 3 to 6, somewhere between 3 and 6 types. He mastered them and categorized them, and he had their good side and their dark side. So that's a person that you could really learn where we are now. And according to Aristotle, we are in an oligarch, which a cigar society. You can, people say we're in a democracy, and our democracy. No, we're not in a democracy. We on paper we still call it a democracy. On paper, on paper we still say have a constitution, but that constitution is being replaced by a system of arbitration. Every time we're all hooked to a cell phone now. So every time they tell you we've updated our terms and conditions, if you want to keep using this app, you have to agree. And if you don't agree, if you don't by a certain date, we'll assume you agree. Well, guess what? You've either already or will be signing into arbitration, which eliminates the court system, which eliminates what little laws you had in the court system that they say is corrupt. This is worse than that. So my point is, we're in an oligarch, and the flip side of oligarch is very bad news, but it kind of has to happen. I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to quote Aristotle wrong, but I'm just telling you that man was onto it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, but I'll just throw
I
out
know.
those right
I
now.
know. Yeah, it's funny. If I asked myself that question, it would be Albert Einstein, and I sit here with his eyes looking at me for the last 15 years. And
Wow.
15 years ago, I channeled him in my spiritual way, and it made a difference in my life. I just can't conceive, and it was just what you said, Rick, about Aristotle and Plato. I can't conceive how a mind in 1900, before before AI and before Google and the internet, how he conceived of everything he conceived of. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and it's really simple. They were trying to achieve their potential of human consciousness. That's all these. Look at Mozart. Look at all these great people. They were trying to achieve their highest level of human consciousness, and that's, if we were doing that ourselves, we'd be better off. But we're tied to things like, well, this is profitable for me. I better lower my level of human consciousness, or I'm not going to be able to snatch this money in this egregious way.
Oh, okay. What is the extraordinary change related to what we've talked about that we are now on the cusp of? You say we're on the cusp of extraordinary change. What is that?
Well, that is the change where we go from a a society that has been ruled by colonialism, as you see still going on. We're still trying to drag colonialist behavior on. You see it in the Middle East. You see, where we're doing that, and where we were, like I said, doing that which was not profitable, that was not spiritually enhancing in order to achieve profit, and all of these things that we were doing without the technology, because we couldn't do any better, really. I mean, we couldn't, there was only so much we could do with what we had, to a new world where we now can all play a role in solving our world's problems. All 8 billion of us could conceivably play a powerful role if we navigate this correctly. And Jazz for Peace is there with tons and tons of solutions that all you have to do is review, because all we care is that the cream rise to the top. But a lot of people are looking at the people who do look at what we're doing say, man, that's the best option I've seen so far. And
Okay.
some of them are very intelligent people.
Okay. So this is one of my favorite questions because I live and breathe AI all day long. I subscribe to 4 different AI things. One takes care of this, one is that, one is that, and how can AI and technology play a positive role in this transformation?
So there's a 55-second video on YouTube, and I believe it is NYC jazz musician solves world problem in only 50 seconds. And you click on that, and you hear me basically answer Larry's question in just 50 seconds. And that is really simple. Everyone is worried now about their jobs being eliminated, their jobs being taken away. But what I'm worried about is that us not using that as an opportunity. And so if you take all that money that's going to be made from AI, because you don't have to pay people, if you don't have to pay a person, there goes your salary, there goes all the taxes and all this stuff, and now you're using a machine. Fine, but that money is still being generated. Why can't we spread the money out instead of this crazy path we're on, where the rich get richer, 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 poor get poorer, poor, and the debts get higher, higher, higher? We need to create a situation where we allow a person the opportunity to go after that passion that Larry Namer thought back in his day was convinced you would be homeless. But now because that money is being made without us needing him for that job. Why not let him do something productive? Why not let him survive and have a home or an apartment or whatever he has, and let's give him a chance and let's see what they can do. Because I'll tell you something, I've helped over 850 of the world's outstanding causes, and I can tell you right now for a fact, it doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how new you are, it doesn't matter how rich you are, and it doesn't matter how poor you are. It matters how passionate you are about your dream and your goal. So when I have helped people go from life support to breathing, okay? But that was greater than maybe one of the biggest organizations that was overloaded with staff, and so maybe I only helped them, but it looks like so much more money was raised for that, but percentage wise it was not. It was the other way around. You have to put things in perspective, but this levels the playing field for everyone, and that's going to unleash people, because everyone now feels changed. They feel like it's rigged against them. They look at us and, oh, that's rigged. I can never win in that society. Screw it. I'm gonna be a drug addict instead. I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be screw it. And they're making their statement, but let's let them make their statement in a better way. Let's give them a chance to go after their passions by using this to our advantage.
Okay. Okay. Um, how is this transformation related to the 50-second short? And you just mentioned that you put out a year ago. New York City jazz musician philanthropist solves. Well, you kind of just
Solved word problem. Well, yeah. So that's how it's related. So basically, what I'm saying is, you don't. We need some sort of a system that does not just give all the money to Jeff Bezos. I'm not singling him out, but I could say Mark Zuckerberg too, or I could say we need a system that does not just give all that money to someone who already has too much money that they can't spend of their lifetime. They're doing crazy things with that money. They're spending their underground crazy things in the middle of Hawaii. I mean, it's outrageous, So, I mean, if you look at what's going on, but let's do it. We have to have something in place where all that money doesn't go to someone who already has all the world's money. That's that's how I would answer that extra part of the question.
okay. Um, and this is parenthetical too. How would a new trickle-up economy for philanthropy that would run in tandem with the current trickle-down economy that we have to be able to play an important part in the transformation? So you got trickle up and trickle down.
Right. And so I'm glad I talked about it earlier, because now I can expand on it a little more when you ask me the question. So basically, what you'll have is, somebody who's passionate about, let's say, up where I come from, there's a river, the Mohawk River. And I know there's people that are passionate about cleaning that river, because if you live in that area, I'll tell you that one of the most amazing things you could do is go walk down the street to that river and jump in for a swim outside in the beautiful, except the river's polluted. So someone who's passionate about that, now they clean that river, okay? And that contributes to a trickle-up economy. So not only are they solving a problem, but they're also balancing out our economy, because those funds will trickle up, and they're creating all kinds of new opportunities, and they're enhancing people's lives, and they're having a profoundly, I mean, that's just one little thing I told you about. That would have a profoundly positive impact on the region of upstate New York that I'm talking about, and then I can think of thousands of them. So yes, a trickle-up economy would be a huge game changer for philanthropic purposes, not to compete, but simply to allow philanthropy to do what it's supposed to be doing, not just enhance the profile of a billionaire.
Off topic, do you like some of the stuff, the initiatives that Bill Gates is doing?
Well, I don't. Bill Gates is a perfect example. I mean, somebody said to me recently, they said, you've given out over 850 grants through Jazz for Peace, right? And then he said, such and such, who was another guy who's worth about 100 million or something, has given out over 1,000, and then Bill Gates something like 30,000 or something. He said, okay, and he said this to me, and I wrote him back, and I said, I want you to take a look at this. Bill Gates has given out 30-some thousand grants. I don't know, that's almost like Doge in a way. I don't know what exactly they're talking about with these, you know what I mean? Have you really seen it? Have you really seen what it's doing and all that stuff? I don't know. But let's just give it all the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's 30,000. Go to the website and look at what the foundation has in the website, and you'll see it's not $27 million, which would be a lot, okay? It's something like $72 billion. Okay? And it's growing, not shrinking. And you're giving out, I mean, are you kidding me? Listen, go to this page, folks. Go to jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about and look at what I've done with zero. Not with 1 billion. 1 billion would be 77 times less. I'm talking about zero, okay? And look what I've done there. And then go to any billionaire's website, pick one out of a hat, and see if you can find that page. See if you can find that page. So my point is, whether Bill is doing stuff good, I don't know, because honestly, Bill Gates, I mean, he's got a lot of money. He could just, how could he not know about Jazz for Peace? Like, how is that even possible for him not to know? How is it humanly possible for him not to know about Jazz for Peace? And he could write a check, or he could have someone call up and say, hey, Rick, we're from the foundation. Bill would like to see if you could qualify. He'd like to maybe sit, anything. I've never heard from that or any of these other guys that are giving all this money away supposedly. But my point is, we'd be better off with tons and tons of people rather than a handful trying to save everything. So again, it's part of the old paradigm, no matter how you slice it. I don't know where all that money's going, but it's a lot of money, and it's very few grants in proximity to the amount of money. The percentages, it's microscopic compared to what Jazz for Peace has done with what, and they don't have a page like that on their website. I can't find my page where I list all that and you can look at it. I can't find it on any billionaire's website. If you find one, let me know, please. I'd love to know. info@jazzforpeace.org. But my point is, ultimately, we need hundreds of thousands of people doing that, not just looking over and saying, okay, he's going to handle it. Because take a look out your window and see if all that stuff is being handled. One person can't do it. So I doubt he would tell you that he could solve all these problems. We have to do it. All 8.4 billion of us have to get together. And that's where this paradigm shift can make this a reality.
Okay. Why does your famous quote, when we fill our souls up with creativity, artistry, and intelligence, we have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. Why does that continue to become more pertinent with each day, newspapers, headlines, and how does it play in the necessary transition of the survival of our species?
Well, ultimately, and I didn't know when I said it. In fact, I didn't even know I said it when I said it. It happened to be recorded by a reporter, just recorded me talking to him, and it happened to come out in an article, and then it got lifted by the Famous Quotes websites. And basically, the reason why it's important, I'm finding out now. Why? Because I am simply describing an elevated human consciousness. Okay, if we fill our souls up, what I said to that guy off the top of my head, a couple days after 9/11, like it must have been, it was right after my concert where I recited the Jazz for Peace poem on the 25th in Savannah, Georgia. So it was like, and I had another concert on October 4th, and he was calling me about that, a preview for that concert. So it was right around the end of September. And I said, if we fill our souls up with creativity, with artistry, with humanity, with intellectuality, all these with our greatest qualities, we will have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction? Well, it's a fact, folks. If we raise our level of human consciousness, we will have a way better chance every single day. And it will be like compounded interest, operating at your highest level of human consciousness is the equivalent of compounded interest, because every day is a profitable day for humankind operating at that level. And so again, that keeps us, that gives us the best chance of avoiding all kinds of destructive behavior. But what it ultimately boils down to, I was describing raising our level of human consciousness, of which we have the potential to do, each and every one of us.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. I don't know if you see me, but I don't know how many. I know Johnny Carson never took notes. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon take notes, but I'm taking notes.
Wow.
You keep on saying human consciousness. That is so. As I explore my world and realizing about human consciousness, how powerful it is, and how it can elevate, and what's out there, and the fact that we don't use most of what we got, and to even fractionally to just raise human consciousness and do things that, yeah, listen, I was trained in science, in pharmacy, which I hated, and chemistry and math and all that stuff, hated. I did it for 12 years, and I threw it away. And then I wound up selling eyeglasses for 25 years. And then I raised my human consciousness, and suddenly I realized inside of me there's a writer. And I wrote my first novel, became a journalist. I had a cable TV talk show. I just wrote my second novel, and I didn't even tell you I'm halfway done with my third book, nonfiction, to talk about some of my journeys that are interesting, and in fact whom I work for and stuff, and what I've learned. So human consciousness, you keep saying that, Rick. It's so important because we all got it.
Right.
We all got it. We just don't water it, and we don't mine it and harvest it and develop it. It's there, you know.
Yeah, it kind of came together. Like I said, when I had this guest on, her name is Carrie Logan. All of my guests are amazing, but this one was just an expert at human. I'm like, what is that? An expert at human consciousness? And then she started telling me all the different levels. And then I realized that all the things I said in that famous quote are at a higher level of human consciousness. And so all we have to do, that's all you have to do, is embrace those qualities, okay? You don't know, there's no law that says you have to go and embrace jealousy, you know what I mean? Or embrace all the lower ones. You all know what I mean. The destructive qualities that we all know about. You don't have to embrace them. You don't have to put your arm around them and embrace them. You can embrace our highest qualities, and that will help you ward off the destructive ones.
Right. It's so, you're so right. It's so, because I live it and I see it. And I'm a regular guy. There's nothing, I go to college football games, I go to Rutgers basketball games. I'm a regular guy. I watch old movies. By the way, what's some of your favorite old movies?
I was on a podcast recently, and it was called Retro Movie Soundtable on the West Coast. And they called and they said, we just want to have you on and see what your perspectives are about an old movie. And the movie was called The Man Who Shot Liberty
Oh,
Valance.
sure. Jimmy Stewart, right? Was that Jimmy Stewart?
Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne, and that other very well-known actor, I forgot his name. A couple of the guys are in it. David Carradine's father was in it. Anyway, it's an amazing movie because it talks about a shift like I'm talking about now. It talks about it, but in the West, where Jimmy Stewart is trying to bring law and order to a place where you just it was just what would you call it? Chaos. So it was almost Mad Max, the Wild West, and he's trying to bring the law into it and things where you can adjudicate things and you can do stuff like that. And he's part of the changeover. And John Wayne was part of the old guard, and he was needed because he was the only good guy these towns had, because the bad guy would come in, and if John Wayne wasn't there, they were screwed. And and because of love, that's why our podcast is called The Final Solution is Love. Folks, I hope you'll watch if I get him on as a guest. Make sure you watch it. And It's called The Final Solution of Love, and the final solution in that movie was love, but not love for his country, not love for the the changeover to the new system. Love for a woman who had fallen in love with Jimmy Stewart because she believed in his vision. So he saved Jimmy. He was the man who shot Liberty Valance. Liberty Valance was the bad guy, and he was going to blow this guy's brains out in this kind of thing. And he went from the back and just took care of it with a shot. And everyone thought that the other guy killed him,
Huh.
who couldn't shoot his way out of a paper
Right.
bomb.
Interesting, interesting. I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad. It's funny. I went out to lunch yesterday with an old friend of 65 plus years. We've been friends. We grew up together, and he's now teaching a course at Rutgers, lifelong learning, and he talks about Westerns,
Okay.
and he gets it. So it's 10 weeks, and they watch 10 different Westerns, and one of them was the man who shot Liberty Valance. He showed me that yesterday. That's funny stuff. Funny
I
stuff.
first heard about that from a New York Times review, and I'm not even a big fan of the. I mean, I had an issue. The New York Times right across the street from me, and I had an issue with them over the Assange thing, and it sucked because I don't like to going up against the New York Times. They're powerful, but I was like, hey, you guys. You gonna weigh in on this or not? You're journalism. You call yourselves journalism. This guy's a journalist, and if this doesn't get straightened out, there's going to be thousands of civilians are going to die. I'm told them exactly what happened. Anyway, they finally did come on board with us, New York Times. But it's not fun having to go up against, talk
Yeah.
truth to power is not fun. Believe me, because you don't know what they're going to do. They can, put their thumb on. You don't know what they're going to do. Right across the street. But anyway, it was them. I'm going to give them credit now on this one. That some guy in the New York Times, he's a good movie reviewer, and he kind of summed that up. And I was like, wow, based on that review, I got to see this thing. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's not shot like a Western, like it's not outside with the horses and the Indians and how the Westerns are. It didn't have that kind of budget. So it was mostly shot like on a stage. And they just threw a few outdoor scenes in just to like make it not look like a play, but
Right.
it almost looks like a play.
Wow. Interesting. 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 The last heavy. Tell us about your new famous quote by Rick Della Ratta. The will of the people should sometimes be considered because of two undeniable facts. Governments are not always right, and the will of the people is not always wrong. Why is that important?
Well, I don't know if this will be a famous quote. I think it's as good as anything I've ever said, and I'm going to tell you why. This is because I found myself in a situation where I had a book coming out, and the book is called Paving the Path for Peace Through Music. I don't know if I have it right in front of me, but anyway, it's called Paving the Path for Peace Through Music. It was just about to come out, and it was stuck at Amazon. It's right here, actually. I'll just grab it quick. So this book was about to come out, and it's stuck over at Amazon, and I had said things in this book because I had to tell the truth. And what I was saying is that peace and love are being censored by our big social media companies. And I was documenting it because, Calvin, like I told you, I document things. I don't just say stuff and then, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. So I had documented proof in this book. The book was held up at Amazon because I was accusing them of marginalizing me. So I was accusing them of marginalizing me, and I was showing it. So in this book, you'll see the examples of where I was being marginalized. So guess what happened? While that was stuck in there under some sort of review, I don't know what, all of a sudden I get unmarginalized on one of the social media platforms, and they took that little bink off, and whoosh, people start, my views are going through the roof. And I'm seeing hundreds of thousands of impressions on our posts. And the social media company is emailing us and saying, your posts went up your views went up 1,400% from yesterday,
Wow.
And I got to the point, I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I was posting a bunch of things and with our volunteers, and then I was in the mountains, so I would go off skiing, and I would come back from skiing, And I would see that those posts had hundreds of thousands of views. Why? Because people are interested in me solving these problems. They would like to get them solved. So what happened was I said, listen, this could hit 1 million impressions in 1 week. And if it does, I'm going to screenshot or document, because who the hell is going to believe me if I don't? No one's going to believe me. Sure enough, I get a message that says, your impressions for the Jazz for Peace impressions for the week of blah, blah, blah have topped 1 million views.
My goodness.
Yeah. And then I took another one the next day just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, because the next day they sent us one and it was even higher. Wow. So I took those impressions and I put them on a link. Okay. And basically I decided at that point, if there's 1 million people a week looking at me, from all over the world now, okay, because it's social media. They're all over the world. They're from Israel. They're from Palestine. They're from France. They're from the United States. I'm going to set up a vote. I'm going to set up a vote, and I'm going to use our link, because we had delivered a proposal, a peace proposal months before that. We had delivered a peace proposal, and that's jazzforpeace.org/conflict resolution Q&A.pdf. And that was a proposal. And so I put that up and I said, listen, all of you, you can see this, okay? These are your choices, because these are the only choices that are being given. You can vote for the Jazz for Peace proposal, which actually does a lot of the things I said in this podcast. It redirects funding from war to helping outstanding causes, like Jazz for Peace has been doing for all these years, helping outstanding causes, but helping the outstanding causes in that region, because there's a cause that can address every single thing from PTSD to trauma to this to that, to helping the Israelis who have lived. Some of them are very much against what their country's doing, and they're traumatized. Everybody needs help, believe me, and there are tons of causes that could do it. And I said, it was all I said, this is you can vote for that. That's one. Number two, you could vote to just keep things the way they are, or if you want, you can vote to escalate. You can vote for an escalation of the war. These are the three choices. And this thing didn't run for 1 week, Calvin. Ran for 2 weeks, because you're allowed to run it for 2 weeks. So imagine the amount of people that saw this. We posted it everywhere, and we let them vote, because I'm like, you know what? If you all want a war, you go blow each other up then. I'm just here to tell you this is enough. They voted 96% in favor of not only a ceasefire, but the Jazz for Peace proposal. The Jazz for Peace proposal for the Middle East, 96% worldwide. 4% voted to keep things going as is, and absolutely zero, not one person voted to escalate that war. And guess what happened? It got escalated. But my statement still holds true, and that is, see, here's the problem. You've got 96% of the people in the world that want this ceasefire, and they want this escalated in a humane fashion like Jazz for Peace is presenting. So 96, I mean, how high do you need? I could probably get you a higher total if you need it, but do you need it? It's 96 already.
Wow.
And basically, what I'm saying is, for you not to listen to the rest of us, that's like saying we're always wrong. You know what I mean? You're always right, and we're always wrong. For you to not take a look at that proposal and give it consideration, contact us for questions, nothing. To ignore that vote. After I brought I brought Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans together at the United Nations in 2002. As I told you right at the beginning of this podcast, we're getting ready for the 25th anniversary. Now I've got the vote, 96% all over the world. So for you to ignore that is telling us, hey, you're so stupid that we don't think you could ever be right, not even once. And we're always right. Well, you know what? We're looking at why there's so many problems, because you probably think you're always right, and that's wrong right there. Even that thought right there is wrong. So my statement is real simple, okay? There proposals like this of 96% of the world. This isn't a close call. This isn't like a presidential election 51-49. This is 94-0 with 4% looking to go in between. And I would even question some of those 4%ers. But anyway, my point is, I'll give it as it is. 96 to 4-0. And what I'm saying is proposal like this should be considered for two reasons. One, because the people, the ruling class and the ruling powers are not always right. So let's get that straight. Well, why don't you all agree that you're not always right? And the other reason for this to be considered is because the rest of the people, the 99% of us, are not always wrong. So that's the reason this proposal needs to be considered. And that's why that quote is important.
It's great. It's great. You're amazing and you're fascinating and accomplished. And we could just talk and talk and talk, which we're going to stop for now. I'd love you to come back. But would you grace us with that keyboard and the
Sure. So now what I have in mind is a couple of things. One, you had seen something that took place, and it's in Nigeria.
Yeah,
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
It's live. It's a concert I did in Nigeria where I got up on the stage and I told the audience, listen, this Assange thing, okay, this guy, you cannot, we have to straighten this out, because again, I was in the same boat where I could not, they said the United States wanted the extradition. I'm part of the United States. I couldn't find one person. If I went out on the street, not even one I could find that said they wanted this guy extradited. Do you know what I mean? So, and listen, I told the audience, if you shoot that person, there'll be nobody. If you know what I mean? If you punish that person, there's nobody to report on it. So it's going to escalate because there'll be nobody. There'll be no. That's your last line of defense is the journalist. So basically, I've got a request because Calvin knows we're here in New York, even though he's in New Jersey. It's pretty close, and it's June. So this is an old standard called, some people call it I Like New York in June, but the real name of the song is How About You? Old song, Frank Sinatra used to sing it. So what do you call it? One of those evergreens, right? A chestnut, whatever they call them, a standard. And I'm going to somehow segue from there into this song that's an original song I wrote. And it's very crazy because I was one time here, and a friend of mine had someone visiting from Uganda and said, I want to bring this woman over because I know you've been to Africa and you just want to meet you, so bring the girl over. And I'm messing around on the piano. And she said, oh, I love that song, but could you play something that you wrote? And I said, I did write this song. And she said, no, you didn't write that song. They played in my country. I said, in Kampala, Uganda? She says, yeah, every Friday the band plays that song. That I did this song? She said, yes. And the fact is, I did Jazz for Peace in Kampala, Uganda. Wow. And that band plays this song with all the other pop songs. So she thought it was a song by Michael Jackson or whatever, but it was a song by me, but it's part of her pop repertoire in Uganda. And I didn't know that. So crazy. Anyway, so I'll start out with there. I'll end up with this.
Do you have to, technologically, do you have to unmute this or do I have to?
I have to do this. Yeah, I didn't do it here. So I'll do this.
Okay.
There we go. And I'm good. Yeah. New York in June. How about you? I like a Gershwin tune. How about you? I like a fireside when a storm is due. I like potato chips, moonlight and motor trips. How about you? I'm mad about good looks, can't get my fill. And Marilyn Monroe's looks give me a thrill. Holding hands by the ritual and all the nights alone may not be new, but I like it. How good books. Can't get my fill. And Marilyn Monroe's looks give me a thrill. Holding hands by the movie show when all the lights are low. May not be new, but I like it. How about you? Stop and smell the roses. You gotta give yourself a break. What is life if you can't live it? Take some time. You got to give yourself a break. You gotta live life for today. Stop and smell the roses. You gotta help me understand why it takes a fallen angel to change your mind. You got to give yourself a break. You gotta live life for today. Drop it off, just leave your baggage on the doorstep. Enter into another place. Stay a while, don't hurry back to your old fortress. Lock yourself out of the roadway. Stop, smell the roses. You got to hold on to the right. To do the things that make you happy, take some time. You got to give yourself a break. You gotta live life for today. Stop and smell the roses. Stop and smell the roses. Stop. Stop and smell the roses. Stop and smell the roses. Stop and smell the roses.
Wow. Wow. That just blew me away. Wow. It's like a carpet, you know. You hop on this little carpet and it kind of
Well, that's our benefit concert series,
wow.
and we can, Calvin, if you show this to an outstanding cause in wherever you are, wherever you want, and tell them this guy needs to take funding for world peace from 0 to 100, and he has to give you money. Will you please accept funds from Jazz for Peace? And we can go through the steps to do a benefit concert as part of our benefit concert series. And so that's all I want to do is take the world from 0 to 100 with, just like I said, just this music. Just this music. In other words, you can put $77 billion in too if you want, Bill Gates, but I can do it just with the music.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always grateful to the universe, the connectivity of the universe, how we got connected. I kind of marvel at that. And of course, things are always by design and meant to be and stuff. And I'm thrilled to do this. Um, and it's a good place to stop. And yes, come back anytime, and we could just talk about stuff, and especially Jazz for Peace and the things you're doing, because I subscribe and believe, without even having met you, these are the qualities and things we need to do. Listen, I came out of the '60s in the Vietnam War, and I was a pacifist back then. I don't even tell you that. I was a pacifist back then. I did not believe in war. You got to talk. You got to figure things out, and war is a terrible thing. And I didn't believe in the war because I knew 6 months after as a kid, I knew 6 months after the war was over, it's going to end. McDonald's and Coke are going to be there selling hamburgers and soda. And to me, the great obscenity today, it is a bit of an obscenity, is Vietnam is a wedding destination. People go to take their honeymoons to Vietnam when we lost 56,000 and they lost 1 million. And war is an obscenity, and it's everything you said. And so before meeting you, it's been part of my life. I drew this, and I'll send you a copy of this. In 1970, I'll send you a copy of this.
Oh,
Yeah, I emailed it to you. I drew this because I was protesting the war and killing, and I was worried about civil rights and things. So some people actually compared me to Basquiat. I didn't. I don't know if I.
yeah, it does. It has that, and it also has a little bit of an indigenous style to it.
Yeah, I may have had some chemical help on. I don't remember. Um, I mean, I don't.
It almost looks a little bit. I mean, there's some of those brushstrokes, uh, like
Yeah.
like like African art.
Yeah, I'll email you a copy of that, and someday when we meet, I'll sign it for you.
Okay.
So this was great. I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.
Don't leave. We'll just do a quick 2-minute wrap.
And just like I'd say, I hope like to come back sometime where I can say, hey, Calvin,
Love that.
this second show is to promote an event from an outstanding cause that
Yeah.
in your area where I'm going to be coming out to help and come out to and use that as a promo for the
Would
show.
love that. Would absolutely love that.
I've got to we've got to help a lot of outstanding causes.
Would love that. And so I'm aboard.
Great.
I'm aboard. So don't leave. I'm just going to stop recording.